Very good evening to you. I'm Lisa Broom with the CBC Evening News. In our top story tonight, the dye testing on the first of 4 injection wells dug to allow the discharge of pre-treated sewage underground has begun. It will allow remedial work to be carried out on the South Coast sewage network. Now, over the coming days, samples will be taken to make sure that none of the dye reappears in the water. They will then be sent to an overseas laboratory, and when the results become available on Wednesday, they will determine if the well field will pose an environmental threat. The life of the current parliament will come to an end tomorrow, and Barbadians are being encouraged not to be heavily influenced by calls for government to announce the general election soon. During his address at the weekly Astor B. Watts Lunchtime Lecture Series, former Deputy High Commissioner to London, Donville Johnson, says an election is inevitable, and he is confident that Prime Minister Frandl Stewart will call it within the period stipulated by the Constitution.
An election has to call. It is as day follow night, or night follow day, whichever it is. The Constitution provides for some things. It provides that the House will dissolve itself, and then the Prime Minister has 90 days after that to call election. So he can't, so these are things that we know by law. He can't go there in August.
Mr. Johnson also encouraged members of the opposition Barbados Labour Party not to get ahead of themselves in their eagerness to have an election called.
If Ms. Motley wants elections, let her call it. Let her call it. It is not within her power, and that is another thing we have to understand. We must know what our abilities and capabilities are, and don't try to go beyond that.
The Barbados Boy Scouts Association can help get Barbados back on track, but more men need to get on board. This strong message has been sent by Chief Justice Sir Marston Gibson during the association's Founders' Day service.
Barbados is on the verge of losing an entire nation of young men. So says Chief Justice and Chief Scout of the Barbados Boy Scouts Association, Sir Marston Gibson, during the association's Founders' Day service. Guided by the theme, Rebranding Scouting in Barbados, a Call to Men, Sir Marston proposed that while the scouting movement would not erase the challenge of crime and violence currently plaguing society, it could play a leading role in curbing the problem.
This organization can provide at least one of the positive responses to the situation we face today. We are standing, as I said before, on the precipice of losing a generation of young men, and we must save them. And with God's help, and with the help of the Boy Scouts Association, we will save at least some of them.
Also in attendance was Governor General Dame Sandra Mason, who is patron of the Boy Scouts Association. She was praised for her commitment to the country's young men. Meanwhile, Reverend David Samboin in his sermon weighed in on the problem of violence in schools. He called on parents to instill in their children life's fundamental values from an early age.
Education is important. School is about education. It is not a catwalk for fashion. It is not a kitchen where we take knives. It is not a shooting range where we take guns. School is for learning, and we need to get back to learning. When we do not put the big things into the lives of our children, as the Chief Justice said, surely we will lose an entire generation.
During the service, a number of scouts received awards, including the Chief Scout Award, the Barbados Venture Gold Award, and the Queen Scout Award for their achievements over the past year. Kareem Smith, CBC News.
Well, Kareem, thanks. Well, Barbadians are being encouraged to disregard a message circulating on social media over the weekend, indicating that Barbados is under tsunami alert. The WhatsApp message said Barbados was one of more than 30 countries placed on tsunami alert after a 7.9 magnitude earthquake in Costa Rica. But both Director of the Department of Emergency Management, Kerry Hines, as well as the Director of the Barbados Meteorological Services, Sonia Nurse, say there is no truth in the alert. Ms. Nurse, that is, explains the Met Office issued a high surf advisory and small craft warning for the island last Friday, but it does not signify a tsunami threat. She also emphasized that tsunami warnings issued by the Barbados Met Office would not be transferred to the public via WhatsApp, but through official sources, including the Barbados Government Information Service. Barbadians appear to be heeding the Met Office's warnings to stay out of the water amid the high swells. Those swells are caused by a deep layered low pressure system in the North Atlantic Ocean. That department issued a high surf advisory and small craft warning since yesterday and is expected to remain in place until Wednesday. Several beaches across the island were empty and dotted with red flags and no swimming warnings as the waters are choppy. Some of the highest waters were seen at Folkestone along with Mullins and Haywoods. Some onlookers gathered and took pictures of the high swells. One home was gutted and 2 others significantly damaged in a fire at First Avenue, Station Hill, St. Michael last night. The Barbados Fire Service acted quickly, averting what could have been a major blaze in the close-knit community just after 9. The fire service responded with 2 water tenders from Probin Street, Bridgetown Station. Resident Robert Estwick, who was asleep at the time, was alerted to the fire next door by neighbors. The heroic efforts helped him to contain the fire that had spread to a bedroom of his home.
I was awakened by the neighbors telling me to come out the house. House next door fire. But before I come out the house, I went check on my house. I went check the back bedroom. When you open the door, the bed in there was on fire. So the back bedroom started to burn and so on and so. 2 of the neighbors, they get holes and they help me to out the back bedroom and so on. They keep off the fire from spreading till the fire engine come. And that's basically about it, you know. I just get 4 ring of damage. Big burn up.
Not even a car accident could stop the Doughty family from collecting the grand prize in Sky Mall's Customer Care Give Back competition. They were among several people who walked away with thousands in cash and store credit during the prize-giving ceremony. Sharika Griffith tells us more.
15-year-old Joshua Doughty has 10,000 reasons to smile, 1 for every $1 he won. But winning was quite possibly the last thing on his mind, as his grandmother was involved in a car crash just outside the mall on her way to the ceremony.
I was rushing to just come here to tell what happened and why she may not be able to make it. And that's when Mr. Eastman told me that to answer if I can come and represent for her. And then she told me, well, yes, that to come in and represent. And I was just sitting down there and hearing all the prizes going through. And I was realizing that my name was not getting called. Till then, out of the blue, I'm a first place winner.
His mother, Sabrina, could not be prouder.
A lot of things were going through my mind, but then when it was outside, I was like, so who's inside? She said, Josh. So I was like, oh, Josh got enough luck. So Josh could go put the right number or whatever, and when they came in just to check to see what's going on, someone was like, oh, your son in the competition? Yeah, he won the $10,000. It's like, he won the $10,000? It had me so stunned, but yeah, he's a blessed child. He always have all the luck on his side.
The mall's Director of Operations, Everett Eastman, says entries for this year's competition rose by 33% over last year's. He believes that's because for every entry form submitted, 50 cents was donated to a charity of the customer's choosing.
The variety and the children's charity, they would have gotten 4,261 entries. They got $2,130.50. The highest was as I said, Barbados Cancer Support Services. They got $3,027.50 from 6,055 entries. And we made sure that anybody that fell below 500s, we pumped it up to 500, as well as we would have given them 100 reusable bags that they can go ahead and do some more promotion to get some more money.
The charities selected by the top 3 prize winners also received a total of $8,000 in cash. For the second year running, the Power of Choice took the lion's share of the money.
We had no idea when we made that decision to go into schools what it would evolve into. So to knowing that we're doing what God says and trying to be obedient, and then to come here 2 years where there are 12 charities and people could have chosen any of the 12 charities, and in the last 2 years the winners have actually chosen the Power of Choice. This is humbling.
Mr. Eastman says the format is likely to change for the next competition in an effort to keep things interesting. However, he confirms the charities will continue to be involved. Sharika Griffith, CBC News.
Thanks, Sharika. We'll take a break here, but we'll be back with a review of AgroFest. Stay with us. Well, last month was a hive of activity with the annual AgroFest exhibition at Queen's Park. And tonight we look back at that spectacle with the Chief Executive Officer of the Barbados Agricultural Society, James Paul. Mr. Paul, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Good evening.
So AgroFest 2018 is in the bag. How did it go for you?
Well, I would say it went well. The thing is really that many of the things that we planned, it went off very smoothly. There were a few hitches. But by and large, I thought that we were able to, carry out a well-managed exhibition. And certainly I think that the exhibitors and patrons, I think, enjoy the festival overall.
Now, one of the things that I always find interesting, and perhaps I've asked you this question before, but Queen's Park is usually packed. There are lots and lots of people, but is AgroFest more of a spectator thing? Is there a way that you track to make sure that the people who come are actually interested in agriculture, or if not, they're converted by the time they leave?
Well, actually this year we did some surveys of the persons, people would have been polled, some of them, in terms of AgroFest, and to get some feedback as to, first of all, how we can improve the event in the future. How do they feel about this year? So we are actually now reviewing those responses on the part of those persons who would have attended, and certainly, we're hoping that feedback will help us to actually improve the exhibition as we move ahead. Because yes, it's a lot of people sometimes, but you can't take it for granted. You have to recognize really that what you're trying to do is to produce an exhibition that has a purpose, which is really how do we showcase the agricultural sector, how can we do it better. And we also have to look to see how we could interact with those stakeholders more to bring out a lot of the aspects of agriculture that we do want to bring out.
So is it more of an exhibition and interaction as opposed to channeling people into agriculture to get more people to be interested, growing their own foods and certainly buying local products?
Well, that is the important thing. In other, we use different ways to do it. So if we can get more people interested in producing food, first of all, recognizing that they have the ability to do it, because that peer-to-peer approach, I think, it does well. And the fact that, of course, we are trying to appeal to especially the younger generation, and at the same time, we show how marketable the commodities are. And for instance, you can see some of the commodities that actually sold at AgroFest are very innovative. People actually sit down and try to think about products that they would like to create, and they do it. Even in the schools culinary competition, we have, for instance, schools who actually participate, and they come up with recipes with drinks that are from local products, and they try them. One of the things is, of course, I would hope that maybe a drinks manufacturer could be there and could actually say, well, what's the formula there, and can we try it? So it is from these simple things where we do things that of spectator interest, and they come and they see what is happening, and that way we sort of bring up some kind of creativity, and we give people the confidence that local products can actually be made appealing and it can be commercially feasible.
Now, interesting that you said in terms of the drinks and those types of things that are produced, perhaps somebody would be there to manufacture them. I know events like BMX, sometimes buyers come in from overseas to look at the products that are on display now. Is that something that AgroFest explores as well, bringing in people who can make the connection for things that are made here to perhaps get some of our products into other markets?
Well, that is something, of course, we would like to explore. As a matter of fact, at some point in previous AgroFest, we did have some participation from Jamaica and Guyana and Trinidad and Tobago. But, a lot of the economies in the region are actually very stressed. So I believe that exhibitors from those countries find it rather burdensome to actually come up, because it's economically challenging for them also. But that is something, yes, we can look for. But I still think that when you look at the size of the local market, and if you go on, say, a supermarket shelf, and you look at the quantities of products that are there, certainly there is space for local products that are there locally. And I think really that what we want to also show Barbadians that, you know, you can have confidence in the products that are actually produced there. And you can actually see the people who are there. And as a matter of fact, you know, what's a good thing is that we find that a lot of the persons who are there, we actually encourage them to, you know, have the cards, have the business cards. So if you want to make a contact with any of those persons after that, we actually keep a file in the BAS that we can say, okay, you are both so and so, this is the person that you need to reach at the same time.
Having said that, do you find that the exhibitors, for instance, and the vendors are embracing the entrepreneurial opportunities that are available at events like AgroFest?
I wouldn't say all of them are, but I believe though that we actually, prior to AgroFest, we have meetings with those exhibitors and we try to point out the business opportunity that is there for them. So for instance, if you want to, you know, get your product out in the market and get people to be aware of it, this is what it is about. And we try to encourage them to do that. For instance, I said before, you know, we had schools who actually came and they do the whole thing of, and we talk about entrepreneurship in schools. And some schools were able to actually sell out some of the products that were actually made there. It was interesting when the Governor General actually visited, I believe it was the St. George Secondary School booth. She was very impressed with the products that actually were being made by those young people. And I can tell you too, even at the conclusion of the event, they actually were able to sell significant quantities of the things that they had. Even for instance, there was a particular one where you had the terrace, the terrace garden. Okay, they actually, you know, people were actually interested in buying them. So it shows you that people will purchase things once they are well made, once they are well presented, and AgroFest actually offers the opportunity for people to do so.
Okay, and last question very quickly. Have you looked at any innovations for next year yet, or is it too early?
Well, it's a bit too early, but we have some ideas. For instance, one of the things that we do intend to do, we don't think we are overplaying our hand when it comes to selling agriculture to our young people, because clearly we can see that they're coming up with the innovative ideas that are driving the process. And I think we also would like to see even our established farming enterprises come out even more in support. So yes, we'll be reaching out to the schools very much this year in terms of trying to get innovative things happening. And what we'll be doing is to get our established farming enterprises to see if they can actually embrace some of those innovations that those young people will come up with.
Thank you very much, James Paul, the Chief Executive Officer of the Barbados Agricultural Society, reviewing AgroFest 2018. Still to come, a look at some of the stories making headlines across the region, so stay tuned. The General Secretary of the St. Lucia Civil Service Association is warning against allowing unresolved industrial relations matters to simmer. The word of caution comes as the association, under the banner of the Trade Union Federation, gets ready to head back to the bargaining table.
A few weeks ago, the Civil Service Association, which had submitted its proposals, called on the Prime Minister to acknowledge the CSA's written requests for information and activate the government negotiating team to start talks on a collective agreement. Now, General Secretary Claude Paul is welcoming news of the appointment of the GNT, chaired by Attorney-at-Law Fern Jill. The last round of negotiations with government resulted in a collective bargaining agreement for public officers for the period of 2013 to March 2016. The next agreement will cover the period of 2016 to 2019. Paul says the Trade Union Federation has just concluded a preparatory meeting and is gearing up to take its seat at the bargaining table.
We hope we'll start soon now that the government negotiating team is in place. A chairman, Mr. Gill, and representatives from the various ministries who are concerned with negotiations like the Public Service, Finance, Economic Affairs, etc., will be on the team. In addition, I believe, to representatives from the St. Lucia Employers Federation, etc. So we'll look forward, now that the team is in place, to the start of negotiations. And as I said, the TUF met yesterday. But notwithstanding that, the CSA also has some other outstanding matters. Firstly, from the last collective agreement that still has not been resolved a few outstanding matters, so we expect this to be resolved before the start of negotiations.
Some of these matters include deliberations with the St. Lucia Electricity Services Limited, which are before the tribunal, as well as finalizing talks with the water and sewage company Wasco.
In Guyana, amidst the colors, songs and dances, President David Granger celebrated Pagua at State House. The festival is one which fosters unity across the country.
President David Granger took a decision since 2015 to observe many national holidays and observances at State House. The day before the actual observance of Pagua this year was not different. Delivering remarks at the celebrations, Mr. Granger said that Pagua and similar festivals help to bridge the social and racial gaps in Guyana.
The Hindus brought this festival, the singing, the dance, 180 years ago. In fact, in May, we'll be celebrating the 180th anniversary of Indian arrival. And festivals like this help to foster cohesion, foster respect, foster understanding.
Among those who attended the event at State House were members of several Hindu organizations, ministers of government, members of the diplomatic corps, chancellor of the judiciary, and speaker of the National Assembly, among others.
I'm president for all Guyana, and those of you who are here in November would have seen the diyas. There are Christian ceremonies here, Hindu ceremonies, and some secular ceremonies. But this ceremony particularly is both secular and spiritual. Spiritual, as you heard from the Pandit, it is the festival which celebrates the life, the survival, the triumph of Prahalad, and secular in the sense that it brings us all together.
Pagua is a national holiday in Guyana. It signifies the victory of good over evil and the arrival of spring. It is also celebrated as a festival of colors in the honor of Hindu god Vishnu and his follower Prahalad.
We have a glimpse into the world of sports just ahead, but before we get to that, here's a tip from Cooperators General Insurance.